Every year, thousands of close encounters turn tense, not because animals attack without warning, but because people miss the quiet signals that come first. Just seconds before a reaction, something changes. Subtle, deliberate, and meaningful. A shift of weight, a pause that lasts a breath too long, a look that isn't curiosity at all. If you know how to read it, that moment is an invitation to step back. If you don't, it's where everything accelerates. Today we're diving into animal warning signs, the language of posture, timing, and space, where biology explains why these signals exist and what follows when they're ignored. Stay with us because understanding these cues doesn't just change how you see wildlife, it changes how you move around it. Let's explore with Animal Prime. Let's begin with an animal most people believe they already understand. The horse is often described as gentle, compliant, and even predictable. And yet, in barns, paddocks, and open fields, more people are injured by horses each year than by many wild animals combined. The reason isn't aggression, it's a misunderstanding. Horses are prey animals, wired by evolution to survive by reading danger early and responding fast. Their warnings are clear if you know where to look. When a horse pins its ears flat against the neck, it's not being moody. It's narrowing sensory input, focusing forward. A tail that lashes side to side isn't impatience, it's rising arousal. Watch the feet closely, and you'll often see the weight shift first, hindquarters loading like a spring. From a neurological standpoint, this is preparation, not malice. Prey species rely on rapid reflex arcs that bypass slow, conscious decision-making. Add a critical detail many people forget. A horse's blind spot's directly behind and in front of the head. Step there at the wrong moment, and the animal doesn't decide to kick. The body completes a defensive loop that began seconds earlier. What science reveals is reassuring and sobering at the same time. Horses warn because conflict is costly. A kick risks injury to both sides. The signals, ears, tail, stance, are the animal's way of saying, "I'm uncomfortable, give me space." When those signals are respected, the situation de-escalates. When they're ignored, the reflex finishes its arc. Understanding this doesn't make horses dangerous. It makes them honest communicators in a language we must learn. From the open fields to the living room, warning signs become even easier to miss when familiarity breeds complacency. Dogs share our homes, our routines, and our trust. That closeness can blur our perception of their signals, especially in moments that feel calm on the surface. One of the most misunderstood warnings in canine behavior is stillness. Not the relaxed stillness of rest, but a freeze. Muscles taut, eyes wide, breathing shallow. Paired with what trainers call whale eye, where the whites of the eyes show as the dog looks sideways. This pause is a red flag. Why does stillness matter? In behavioral science, freezing is a transitional state. It's the nervous system balancing two options: disengage or escalate. Cortisol levels rise, narrowing attention. Movement becomes economical. To a human, it can look like obedience. To another dog, it's unmistakable tension. Add lip tightness, a closed mouth after panting, or a subtle head turn away from contact, and the message becomes clearer. I need space. Most incidents happen not because the dog snaps, but because the freeze is misread as compliance. A hand reaches in, a face leans closer, the distance collapses. In that instant, the animal's stress threshold is crossed, and the body chooses the fastest exit from discomfort. When people learn to recognize the pause as a warning, outcomes change dramatically. Space returns, stress drops, the encounter ends without incident. The science is simple. Behavior escalates when signals fail to change the environment. When the environment changes, behavior settles. Now take that lesson outdoors, where scale and stakes rise quickly. In bear country, many encounters that look sudden on video are anything but. Bears, especially black and grizzly bears, are not eager to fight. Fighting is risky, metabolically expensive, and unpredictable. Instead, bear test. They huff. They pop their jaws. They may rise onto their hind legs, not to loom, but to see and smell better. Sometimes they perform a bluff charge, covering ground fast before stopping short. To the untrained eye, a bluff charge feels indistinguishable from an attack. To a biologist, it's a negotiation. The bear is asking a question. Will you stand your ground? Will you give me space? The charge compresses time and distance to force an answer without committing to contact. Studies of bear behavior consistently show that most charges end without physical contact when humans respond by increasing distance and avoiding sudden movements. Here too, the warning is the opportunity. The vocalizations and posture are not a countdown to violence, they're a bid to avoid it. When hikers recognize jaw-popping and huffing as signals rather than provocations, they can respond in ways that reduce risk for both parties. Knowledge becomes a buffer. Across these three animals, horse, dog, bear, the pattern repeats. Warning signs are not threats. They are communicating. They evolve because they work. Animals that signal effectively avoid injury, conserve energy, and maintain control over their environment. The signals become louder only when the environment fails to change. What unites these moments is not danger, but timing. The body speaks before action because action is the last resort. When we miss the language of posture and pause, we compress the timeline until only reflex remains. When we listen, the story often ends quietly. As we move forward, keep this principle in mind. The most important part of any encounter is not what happens next, but what happens just before. Because in the wild and in our shared spaces with animals, survival doesn't begin with strength. It begins with understanding. What makes animal warning signs so easy to miss is not their subtlety, but our confidence. By the time we reach national parks, open trails, or wildlife corridors, many of us believe we already understand what danger looks like. We expect teeth, speed, noise. Yet in the natural world, escalation almost never begins that way. It begins with posture, with space, with an animal deciding whether you've noticed its message. Few animals demonstrate this more clearly than the massive grazers of North America. Bison and moose are often mistaken for passive giants, slow-moving, predictable, almost scenic. Tourists photograph them from cars. Hikers assume size equals calm. But in animal behavior science, these species belong to a category where warning is expressed through structure rather than sound. They don't snarl, they don't roar, they reposition. A bison that turns broadside and lowers its head is not resting. It's aligning muscle groups. When the hooves scrape the ground, that movement isn't random irritation. It's a displacement behavior signaling agitation. Each step forward shortens the safety margin, testing whether the perceived threat, you, will increase distance. In Yellowstone and other national parks, researchers have documented a consistent pattern. When humans fail to back away during this phase, the animal's options collapse. The charge that follows is not rage, it's momentum. Moose operate in much the same way, but with an added complexity. Their long legs and high shoulder mass make sudden bursts of speed extremely effective. Before that burst, the signs appear quietly. Ears rotate backward, not flat but angled. The head lowers just enough to bring antlers, or in cows, sheer mass, into alignment. The body stiffens. What looks like curiosity is often calculation. In both cases, the science is clear. These animals evolved to resolve conflict without prolonged engagement. A warning that fails to change the environment becomes meaningless. When people step closer instead of farther away, the warning loses its purpose. The body moves on to the next step. This is where many viral videos begin. Not at the start of danger, but at the end of communication. Nowhere is that misunderstanding more dramatic than with the largest land animal on Earth. Elephants are often described as emotional, intelligent, and even gentle. All of that is true. It's also why their warning signs are so intentional. When an elephant feels threatened, it rarely charges immediately. Instead, it displays. The ears spread wide, increasing apparent size. The head shakes side to side. Sometimes there's a forward rush that stops abruptly, a mock charge. To humans, a mock charge can feel indistinguishable from the real thing, but biologically it serves a different purpose. A full charge risks injury to the elephant, especially to the trunk and legs. Those risks matter. So elephants communicate first using scale and sound to push perceived threats out of their comfort zone. Field studies in Africa and Asia show that mock charges often succeed. Vehicles reverse, people retreat, space is restored. When that happens, the elephant stops. The warning has done its job. Problems arise when people freeze, advance, or attempt to capture the moment on camera. In those seconds, the animal reassesses. The display has failed. What follows is not a sudden change in temperament, but a continuation of the same decision-making process. Distance was requested, distance was denied. The rules change. This pattern, signal, test, escalate, is not limited to herbivores. It becomes even more precise in predators, where timing and energy efficiency define survival. Big cats communicate danger in ways that are almost invisible unless you know what to watch for. Unlike dogs or bears, they rarely vocalize before action. Their language is kinetic. A lion's tail flicking sharply from side to side is not idle motion, it's neurological discharge, a sign of heightened arousal. Muscles compress, the body lowers, bringing the center of gravity forward. The eyes fix. In animal behavior research, this sequence is known as the predatory motor pattern. Once it begins, it progresses quickly. The warning comes before the pattern completes, during the tail movement, during the stillness. That is the window. When prey or humans recognize it and increase distance, the pattern can abort. When they don't, it finishes. What's striking is how consistent this principle is across species that share almost nothing else. From hooved grazers to apex predators, animal warning signs exist for the same reason. They reduce uncertainty. They allow animals to avoid unnecessary injury. They conserve energy. They maintain control. Humans, however, often do the opposite. We step closer. We linger. We assume proximity equals safety if nothing has happened yet. In behavioral terms, we wait for confirmation that comes too late. By the time movement replaces posture, the conversation is already over. This is why understanding animal warning signs before an attack is not about predicting violence. It's about recognizing communication in its earliest form. When ears angle back, when bodies stiffen, when space narrows, those moments are not dramatic. They're informative. Across parks, reserves, and shared landscapes, the same lesson repeats. Animals rarely act without reason. They act without hesitation only when their warnings have failed. As we move deeper into this story, keep one idea grounded in mind. Escalation is not sudden. It is sequential. And every sequence begins with a signal meant to be noticed. Because in the wild, the difference between a peaceful encounter and a dangerous one is often measured not in strength or speed, but in whether someone understood the warning when it was first given. If the first warnings are easy to miss and the middle signals are easy to misread, the final lesson comes from animals we underestimate most. Not because they are weak, but because their warnings don't look like danger to us. They look like a theater, like noise, like overreaction. And that assumption is exactly what makes these encounters escalate. Snakes are a perfect example. Few animals inspire as much fear, yet few work harder to avoid conflict. Venom is expensive. Producing it costs energy, time, and vulnerability. From an evolutionary standpoint, using venom defensively is a last resort. That's why snakes advertise first. A rattlesnake coils its body, elevating the head, tightening the muscles. The rattle follows, not as a threat, but as distance communication. It's one of the clearest animal warning signs in the natural world. A sound evolved specifically to say, "Don't come closer." Cobras take this further. When the hood flares, the body expands visually, transforming a narrow silhouette into something broader and more imposing. The goal is simple: end the encounter without contact. Behavioral studies consistently show that when humans stop, step back, and give space during these moments, the interaction ends. The snake doesn't pursue, it doesn't chase. The warning worked. Problems begin when curiosity overrides caution, when people step closer to film, to test, to confirm what they think they see. At that point, the animal's options narrow. The warning has failed. The next response is faster, shorter, and far less negotiable. Here again, science reframes fear. These are not animals looking for confrontation. They are animals communicating boundaries in the clearest language available to them. Recognizing animal warning signs before an attack isn't about bravery, it's about literacy. Learning to read signals written in posture, in timing, rather than words. The same principle plays out in a place most people never expect, among birds. Swans, geese, and cassowaries are often dismissed as comical or overreactive. Yet their warning displays are among the most deliberate in the animal kingdom. When a swan spreads its wings, it isn't posturing randomly. It's creating an illusion of size, turning a compact body into a wide barrier. The neck lowers, the wings lift, and the space between you and the bird suddenly feels smaller. From a biological perspective, this is a bluff enlargement strategy, common in animals that rely on intimidation rather than pursuit. Cassowaries, large, flightless birds with powerful legs, use a similar approach. The body angles forward, feathers bristle, and movement becomes direct. These are not attacks in progress. They are signals designed to stop one from happening. And once again, the outcome depends on the response. When humans retreat, the display dissolves. When they advance, laugh, or linger, the bird escalates. Not because it wants to, but because the message failed. By now, a pattern should feel unmistakable. Across snakes and birds, across mammals large and small, animal warning signs follow the same logic. They are attempts at resolution. They are invitations to change behavior. They are the final step before action becomes unavoidable. What changes everything is understanding that escalation is not emotional, it's procedural. Animals don't lose control. They move through stages, signal, pause, reassess, act. The pause is the gift. It's the moment where nothing bad has happened yet, and everything can still end peacefully. For humans, that pause is uncomfortable. Silence feels like safety. Stillness feels like permission. We wait for certainty, for proof, for the unmistakable sign that danger is real. But in animal behavior science, certainty comes too late. By the time danger looks obvious, the warning phase has already passed. That's why learning animal body language and animal warning signs isn't just for biologists or wildlife professionals. It matters to hikers, parents, pet owners, travelers, anyone who shares space with animals, even briefly. These signals exist because they work. They have kept animals alive for millions of years by preventing conflict, not causing it. When we ignore them, we don't just increase risk, we break a conversation that was already trying to end. So the next time you see a body stiffen, a posture widen, a movement pause before continuing, don't ask whether the animal's dangerous. Ask what it's telling you. Distance is often the answer. Time is the solution. Awareness is the difference. Because in the wild, survival doesn't belong to the strongest or the fastest. It belongs to those who listen early, before action replaces communication. Before we end, we want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed an animal warning sign and only realized what it meant afterward? Which signals surprised you the most in this documentary? Snakes, birds, or one of the animals earlier in the film? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else recognize the warning before it's too late. And if understanding wildlife behavior matters to you, if you believe respect begins with knowledge, consider subscribing. We explore the science behind the wild, not to sensationalize it, but to understand it. Until next time, remember this: in nature, danger rarely arrives without a message. The question is whether we're paying attention when it speaks.